Welcome to this Fireside Chat with Accounting Web. I'm John Stockdyke for Accounting Web, and I've got with me two executives from Intuit QuickBooks. We have Chetan Shah and Tom Menzies. Between us, over the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to look at the MTD challenge in quite a broad context. We're recording this video in mid-November 2021, so we've kind of just reacting, responding, and beginning to alter, plans for the go live of MTD ITSA in April 2024. But there is a step ahead of us, not too many months away in April 2022, to bring on that kind of second wave of MTD for VAT viewers. So there's some specific technical challenges. I think there's some unresolved technical points. So between us, we're going to look at the broad context, where the profession stands at the moment. Then we're going to dig into the product and kind of look at the gaps where we think practitioners should be focusing to bring their clients up to speed. That's the rough running order of the next 30 minutes. But before we dig into the detail, let's hear from Chet and Tom. Chet, can you tell us a little bit about your role and your broad, the kind of philosophy you bring to the MTD challenge?
Thanks very much, John. It's great to be here. So my role within Intuit UK is accountant segment leader, which effectively means I'm the voice of accountants within the business. And I will challenge our products and marketing and various parts of our business to ensure that we're looking after our accountants just as we look after our SMBs. In terms of what I'm seeing, some of the challenges and some of the macro environment challenges we've seen recently, digitization is probably the biggest one. And that was happening irrespective of MTD, but MTD has accelerated digitization. And of course, with the COVID and Brexit, that all of those things have come into the mix as well.
Excellent. And Tom, what's your role? And again, your MTD agenda?
Sure. So I'm a lead product manager here at QuickBooks, looking after tax and accounting product needs in the UK. I speak to customers, both SMBs and their accountants, to really understand their problems and how a product can support making everyone's lives that bit easier. MTD, it's a major component of the work I'm focused on at the moment, building out those initial experiences as we move towards April 24.
Thanks. Great. Well, we'll be digging back into the nuts and bolts before too long. But Chet, can I come back to you? Because I know as part of the sort of broader product mission at a developer like QuickBooks, you do a lot of market research and you've been doing some surveys over the course of 2021. What are you picking up from, what does your research tell you about the state of the market? And does that help prioritize where you're focusing?
Yeah, so there's a number of insights that have come through from our research. Probably the one that stands out the most is around awareness, the simple awareness of MTD, the awareness of what's going to impact who and when. And that in itself creates its own set of challenges, particularly for accountants and practitioners who are having to have these conversations with SMBs without them fully understanding what's actually happening in the marketplace. So it makes the role of an accountant that much more challenging. So our research suggests that the awareness needs to be a lot better than it is. And our research also tells us that accountants are telling us that actually getting clients to come on board, start using FMS and cloud solutions is that much more challenging because they haven't recognized what's coming down the line.
And by FMS, you mean financial management system?
Yeah, all accountancy software, financial management systems, cloud, yeah.
Okay, Tom, so since we're mentioning product, how are you responding, in detail to what needs to be done yet? How's that research affecting your development plans?
So quite significantly in terms of, we want to build awareness whilst also building towards what HMRC require in terms of the actual product itself. So, it's impacting in terms of meeting those requirements, but also how do we overlay on top of that, not just meeting the requirements from HMRC, but go above and beyond that in terms of what our customers are really asking for as well, that goes and meets that.
Okay, well, we'll come back and get more detail for you. But Chet, are there any specific challenges or client groups who stand out that might be cause for concern over the next couple of years?
Yeah, so the groups of certainly the groups of SMBs that haven't been impacted so far by MTD so far, they're the ones that are least likely to know what's coming down the line. So you think about the 4 million plus self-employed sole traders out there that are going to be impacted certainly by ITSA in 2024. That's a large cohort of businesses out there that are going to be impacted. And that creates, as I said earlier, about accountants have a real job on their hands to bring all of those SMBs on board. Now, not all of those SMBs will be attached to an accountant today. So there's the whole process of just simply bringing them on board. And then there's the actual educational process of actually letting people understand why the compliance is so important, what it means for them, what they'll have to do or change as a result. So there's a fair amount of work to be done between now and then.
And I mean, the research maybe was early in the year, in the summer, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So have you noticed anything, have any circumstances changed since you got that information? Have you adjusted the direction of travel at all in the past couple of months?
So one of the biggest changes we've made is that we've launched something called an onboarding hub and our MTD hub as well. So we recognize that if the challenge is education and awareness, then we have a responsibility to help our accountants to help their SMBs come on board. So we've launched a number of initiatives. The onboarding hub is now live. The MTD hub is now live. And accountants and SMBs can go onto our website and actually understand, what is MTD? Does it affect me? How does it affect me? For accountants, it means that they can actually point our website to their SMBs so that they can get very specific knowledge. And then when they're ready to come on board to start using cloud software, then we've even got the tools there to help them bring those clients on board.
Tom, so Chet's saying that there's kind of outreach activities, education and awareness building going on already on the website side of things, but in product, can you give us a sense of the priority areas you and your team are working on?
Absolutely. So our first target is to be catering to the self-employed customers with a single income stream, which matches the HMRC's or some of the HMRC's closed beta requirements. There's quite a litany of eligibility criteria on it at the moment, just as HMRC build out what they can support, as well as we build out what we can support. So currently, kind of 90% of our MTD VAT customers submit on a quarterly basis, and our research suggests we should be looking at a similar weighting for MTD ITSA. So we'll be providing the ability to review the status of each quarterly obligation, get an overview of each category, and then drill down into transactional detail as well. Once a quarterly update has been submitted, HMRC will provide us with an income tax estimate, taking in not just the information we've provided, but additional information HMRC hold as well, such as PAYE income, etc., which will provide a more up-to-date income tax estimate, which will display in a similar way to our existing sole trader income tax estimate feature. But again, it will have that additional information that we don't currently hold in QuickBooks. We'll be looking as well to help customers improve that kind of income tax estimate as well further as we go. There's lots of other areas that we're investigating, so not necessarily looking to build and bring into the sort of betas at the moment in time. So how can we leverage machine learning and AI? Obviously at QuickBooks we have a lot of data. How can we leverage that to really support our customers through the transition as well as practitioners? Can we make budgeting for tax simpler? Again, when we're starting to get better income tax estimates through from HMRC, etc., how can we help people plan ahead for their tax needs, both from a cash flow perspective, but also purely actually reserving the money to one side? And then how do we support accountants who have many clients on MTD? So some accountants with clients that have slightly more complex needs are also impacted by MTD VAT will have many obligations to juggle. So how do we support them through this as well, whether that's in QBOA or in QBO itself? So yeah, lots going on, and of course it's alongside ongoing improvements to the product as well, which we're constantly working on to make managing clients and their small businesses easier. So a lot happening in that space.
Now, since we actually first planned this webinar, there was the change of timetable. we jumped for, we've got this extra year to plan. I mean, and I think the message of this webinar and just broadly across the whole profession is thank you, lucky stars, use that time well. But one of the important things is one of the change of basis here from the accounting, the accounting year with overlaps to everybody on a tax year basis. So that was confirmed and added, and we've seen the draft legislation now since the budget. And I think that's a sort of a workload issue and internal management problem for the practitioners. But at your end of things, have you got all the technical information now that you need to actually scope out and build that MTD? It's a solution.
Yeah, so we're working with HMRC to ensure we're on top of those intricacies, especially around the quarter submissions and end of period statements. HMRC have published their API roadmap, and it makes clear they are pushing updates to their APIs right up until March 22 and beyond. And I think it's realistic to say that there'll probably be updates beyond that as well. So in that, there are probably some unknown unknowns at this point in time in terms of changes that might come down the line. But we are seeing that in the main, we're able to build, and where we do see gaps, HMRC are pretty responsive in terms of where they're up to and how we solve around it. Where we're seeing the most complexity is the interplay between those with multiple income streams, whether multiple business incomes, property income, or furnished holiday lets. The latest information we had from HMRC was this impacts about 380,000 individuals in the UK. So an area we really want to make sure we have nailed down ahead of mandation, that there are intricacies with it, how we manage that within QuickBooks, and then submit that through to HMRC as well. And
can you just sort of give us a sense of what, I mean, you've given us, sketched out a couple of things that, you're looking at some of the processes and where they'll be accommodated in the product. But can you sketch out, I mean, is this review screen, is that something that is, already exists or will be added to QuickBooks Online Accountant? What, can you give us a clearer picture of what the MTD sort of functionality will look like and operate within QuickBooks?
Sure. So we've sort of demoed sort of what the concepts look like already, and the intent is that we will. It very similar to kind of MTD VAT, where we have a landing zone where people can look at the obligations for the year and drill into those next level details as well within that. So there's some concepts out there, and again we're matching it back a little bit to MTD VAT. We want to make sure we have this, in the end MTD. We want to try and bring new things to MTD so that we're able to leverage since MTD VAT was launched, but also keep it relatively similar. So there's there is a parallel between the experiences. So it's not completely different, whether that's for a customer who's doing both VAT and ITSA and they're filing quarterly, but for some reason these experiences are completely different. So we want to keep that similar wherever possible as well. So
can you give us a hint what some of those new things might look like?
So again, as I say, we have the income tax estimates. We have we're looking into, again, as I said, around like the machine learning. We have the VAT error checker as an example. We'll absolutely bringing an error checker through as well. We'll probably be using that in a slightly different way for ITSA, but again, actually enabling someone to just get that reassurance from us that actually, from what we can see, it looks okay. That's not to say, of course, that it is perfect and that it shouldn't be checked further, but at the same time, we want to give as much reassurance as possible that we're doing our due diligence to make it as easy as possible for customers.
Chet, can I bring you back in, because so Tom's kind of taken us through the compliance side of things, getting the information in, shoveling it through to HMRC, rounding it up at the end of the year, although that's an area we could dig into if we have time. But the challenge is a bit broader than that too. It's the client chasing, getting them onto the, Tom was talking earlier about digitalizing, you were talking earlier about getting them onto the accounting system. So that's a workload and an educational task there. The quarterly chasing, that's going to expand mightily. Now, do you think, are you lobbying for those functions to be handled within the QuickBooks MTD solution, or do you think that's an area where you'll continue to work, alongside and rely on third-party apps to provide the portals, to do the reminders and the data collection? How do you see the sort of the ecosystem evolving, and what are you pushing for?
Yeah, it's a good question. Just to step back a little, and we recognize that the workload for accountants is only going to increase. And our research suggests that this should be the happiest time for accountants, because actually business is booming, there's lots of opportunity, and yet there's a lot of pressure on accountants because actually the workload's going up, and therefore it's impacting their work-life balance. And so, some of the reasons they got into the profession, it's having impact there. So it's on us and in the software space to see what workflows we can help them improve, what tools we can provide, and how we can make their lives a lot easier. So to your point, I am definitely lobbying Tom to build within our QuickBooks product set where we can. But also, it's equally important as a platform that we allow ourselves to connect with other third parties as well. So we have a best of breed solution. There will be other providers that are very good at very, very specific tasks, and we should work very closely with them and connect well to them. And where we can do within product, because it makes sense within product, we should absolutely be doing that as well. And the kind of activity you're talking about there, onboarding, getting the client on board, getting them set up, reminders, etc., are conversations that Tom and I have on a regular basis to make sure we meet the market's requirements.
And just to build on what you're saying in terms of the amount of work there as well, Chet, I kind of have a glass half full perspective on MTD as well, that actually there's an opportunity there. And where we say at the moment, it's chasing, we chase on an annual basis to get the documentation in. Actually, how do we make that easier when we're starting to look at it on a quarterly basis? How do we ensure that actually those books are kept up to date each quarter in such a way that actually we don't have this big glug at the end of the year of chasing for information, etc. And actually, can we seize an opportunity here to make it easier, that actually on a quarterly basis it becomes overall a net reduction in the amount of effort it takes? And I think that's kind of the perspective that I'd like to take in terms of where what's the ideal state? Well, the ideal state is actually this reduces the amount of work, not increases it. So I think there's an opportunity for us to do that, and that's certainly a guiding principle for us. Yeah,
I'd agree with that.
Okay, well that's a nice and interesting vision. That good luck. Look forward to
as I say, glass half full, John. Glass half full.
Okay, and bring us back to Chet, maybe over to you again, to that idea of building awareness. We all know that, and we've heard it, and you've reminded us of the importance of doing that. And a lot of accountants probably learned the hard way during the first wave of MTD for VAT that if you skimp on the education awareness building, but what can they do? What suggestions would you make to help them make this next sort of climb a little bit easier as well? Are there techniques you've found to be effective in the field?
Yeah, very, very much so. So if I think we see two groups emerging. There are accountants that are very much, whether they were burnt the first wave of MTD, or they've just recognized that actually the workload that's coming their way is just going to get exponentially larger. There are accountants that are definitely leaning in. So they're recognizing the value of the tools, the capability, the digital tools that are available, and they're starting the educational process with their clients. So if a new client comes on board, they're getting them onto the tools straight away, and there's less paper, very much embracing what technology can do for them. And then you've got groups of accountants that perhaps are watching and waiting and seeing what actually happens. And they run the risk. Of naturally, as they get closer and closer to a deadline, of having a panic and trying to onboard lots of clients at a very last moment, which isn't a great experience. I think from an opportunity point of view, those that are leaning in, those that are starting to have conversations, that are educating their clients, not just on MTD, because there's a compliance element, but actually clients that go on to software and start using the features like receipt capture, bank feeds, invoicing, and so much more, they're already getting benefits into their business. They're freeing up time already so they can get on and actually run the business. So there's opportunity there to start bringing those clients on board as early as possible, so that when the MTD phases come along, actually the hard work's already done. They're already using the tools. It's just a matter of compliance activity that needs to take place. And then we're providing a number of support tools to help those conversations. I mentioned earlier there's the onboarding hub, and there's an MTD hub which we've kicked off as part of based on the research that we've done around the time it takes to bring somebody on board. Our MTD hub is a very comprehensive educational site for accountants, so that they can understand better what's coming down the line, but also for them to point to their SMBs, to their clients, and say, here's an opportunity for you to learn a bit more about what's coming down the line and the impact it will have on you. And once you're ready to bring those clients on board, we've got support teams available, we've got account teams, we've got the actual onboarding hub, we've got a variety of sources that are helping our accountants bring their clients on board. So we're doing it very much together, and helping them resolve some of the challenges on doing that.
Tom, I mean, are there any in-product things that that you can build in to assist with that?
So as we sort of talked about before, that once in product, the base requirements of MTD really become down about bookkeeping and keeping timely and accurate books. So where we have features, as Chet sort of mentioned, that help improve that, so that might be bank feeds, it might be the receipt capture or mileage tracking, that really helps in terms of improving that. And we do see, when we look at the entity VAT behavior of what we might call more hesitant users, so users that are there in the product because they need to file quarterly for VAT, is they start to use a feature that particularly is pertinent to them. So it might be bank feeds as an example. So they kick off, they start using bank feeds, and slowly as they get more comfortable with the product, they realize that actually, hold on, I can use this other piece of the product as well. That'll make my life that bit easier. And then they find the next feature that makes it that bit easier. So it's about finding that one feature for a lot of customers, especially the hesitant ones, that can really add value to them in the short term, that then leads them into the rest of the product, to help them, that will over time make it easier for them to manage their business, and as well for practitioners to support them in managing their business as well. So yeah, it's those features that are already there to help with keeping the books up to date, and again from that MTD follows.
Thanks. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to go back to something Chet talked about. I find quite interesting. That group of, was it 4.2 million, the very smallest businesses, the people with a single source of income, maybe like the landlord population is quite big. There is you've both mentioned sort of the opportunity there to, I don't think, not all of those people are served by accountants. Do you think, is QuickBooks working on an assumption that there is a new cohort that needs to be serviced, and how are you working towards that, and how do you think the accountants can start to engage? What would you suggest they do to perhaps open up that new territory? Is that feasible? And maybe start with you and see how Tom will support you on the product side.
From my perspective, it still comes back to that educational piece. So is there opportunity? Absolutely. Landlords is a good example. Many landlords become what we would term as become landlords accidentally. So they didn't go out looking to become a landlord, but they may have inherited a property or bought their first property, a holiday home, etc., and by default have become a landlord. So they may fall into that trap. What we always advocate is that seek advice, seek help early. Get accountants are there. We consider accountants to be the heroes of the SMB world. If doctors are considered to be the heroes of the NHS world, accountants are very much heroes of the SMB world. And to contact an accountant to help you understand what the implications are. From a product perspective, I'll let Tom answer that question.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned, John, around the sort of is it that sort of new cohort and new segment, and what we're actually bringing quite soon is a feature in our QBSE product which is focused on landlords, so actually updating the chart of accounts in QBSE to match the SA105 form for landlords. This is about us starting to learn about that cohort and starting to understand the needs. We know that QBSE is not a preferred, from an accountant perspective and practitioner perspective, but at the same time, it's going to allow us to learn. It's where we can, it's the most matched towards landlord needs at this point in time. Certainly those, as Chet mentioned, those small landlords that make one or two properties, they're a bit more accidental rather than necessarily institutional, aiming to build a property portfolio, etc. So we really want to start understanding that market, an awful lot more, because they're going to come under MTD, they're going to be impacted, and we want to make sure that we're ready to bring them on board, and help them through the transition as well, because as you say, especially if they're unsupported currently, doesn't mean that they won't be supported when MTD hits. But at the same time, we need to make sure there's a good runway for these customers that don't see themselves as being impacted, they don't consider themselves as having a business. They don't understand why they need to keep the books, because I just have another property. So actually understanding that mindset and understanding how we can support them through MTD is really, really important. So we're making moves on that as it stands to bring the SA105 form effectively to QBSE, very similar to how we currently support self-employed.
Right. Okay, and it's the QuickBooks Self-Employed is QBSE, just to...
Yes, thank you.
Excellent. Well, as I say, you've both emphasized the importance of building awareness and of educating accountants and clients to the requirements and the longer term implications and planning requirements. Just to wrap things up before we go, really, maybe I'll start and come back to you, Tom. From what we've said and what we've looked at, if someone's watching this video, I want you to sort of send them away with a little sort of morsel of inspiration or one key idea that they can maybe think about or start acting on, the minute they stop viewing this video. What would you encapsulate for them?
If you are unaware of what MTD is, have a look, build that awareness. There's plenty of content out there, as Chet mentioned. We have our MTD hub as well, which provides a lot of information. And then I would be identifying if there's any particular clients that could go onto the pilot from April 22. There is a eligibility criteria for it. It has to be relatively simple needs. But it's not an all or nothing. It could just be one client that goes onto that. So actually, it will help investigate those questions that we're seeing from practitioners all the time, which is how much work will it be for me? How much work will it be for my clients? And what does it actually mean running MTD day to day? So that will really get people set up from April 22 to be just onboarding if it's just a single client, because you'll understand the process, you'll understand the work that's needed. So that would be the two things: build awareness and prepare for the pilot in April 22.
Okay, and over to you, Chet, for the final big idea to send our viewers away with.
So for accountants, just lean in, simply lean in, recognize the benefits of the tools that are available, using QuickBooks Online. Lean in now, so that actually when it comes to each wave of MTD, there's very little work to be done. So clients are already on board, they're already using the software, they're getting benefits, and they'll thank you for the benefits that they'll get from them. And at the same time, when it comes to the compliance elements, it will flow a lot quicker and easier.
Great. Thank you very much, gents. That was kind of nice update, some really useful practical advice on all those fronts, and it's a never-ending story. This video is part of a much broader effort on QuickBooks' behalf and Accounting Web's behalf to keep building that awareness and keep supporting clients. The resources that Chet's mentioned are available on the QuickBooks website, and Accounting Web is as you all know, we're constantly monitoring the technical developments and working with software developers like Intuit and talking to practitioners about what they're doing. So we'll be in there with you too. But Chet, I understand you've got more on your plate as well, as far as being able to sort of support and educate your customers and your prospects. Is there a virtual event in the offing? Is there things we can look forward to from your side of the fence?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the most exciting times on our calendar comes in March of 2022. It'll be QuickBooks Connect. It's the biggest event in our calendar. Those of your viewers that have attended these sessions before talk wonderfully about it. It's a big event in terms of new product releases. We bring communities together, so accountants are brought together and they can discuss ideas and share thoughts. Tom, I'm sure, will be talking about some new product releases that are coming their way, some really exciting stuff. So it's the event of the year, and it's free to attend as well.
So as I say, the support, the information, and kind of the experience of sharing with your fellow practitioners will be there. I mean, there's a little interlude we have with the personal tax season, but I think Intuit and Rebecca Bennyworth are helping you with that. There'll be a download available very shortly on some survival tips to get you through self-assessment, and that period of engagement where you are talking with clients, that's actually a really good time to open the door to MTD and say, we're not actually going to be working like this for much longer. Let me tell you more about what it's going to look like. So use that. Hopefully you're on top of the workload enough with self-assessment, maybe to use it as a stair step to April 22 and the VAT intake, and then obviously into the pilot and into the planning and into the transitions for MTD for ITSA in April 2024. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, Chet, for some really helpful, useful advice. It's been fun talking to you both, and I look forward on behalf of Accounting Web to seeing you online again and to seeing all our viewers too. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you. Cheers.
And thank you for watching, and see you again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.